Hello, welcome. My name is Laurie Graham. I'm Brick's publisher, and I'm just popping in with one very brief, very special program note for you today. The poet Nathaniel Mackey has been writing song for the Andoumboulou since the mid-1970s, and he continues to this day. We are so pleased to be publishing a short excerpt from that work in our summer issue, and Nathaniel Mackey has agreed to read from that excerpt for us tonight and offer a finale to our program. So I hope you enjoy his reading. I hope you enjoy all the readings. On with the show.
Hello and welcome to the launch of Brick 107. I'm Brick's managing editor, Allison LaSorda. Super comfortable to be here. Thank you for tuning in to our third virtual launch on this, the longest day of the year, and for your continued support of our magazine. Sitting at 200 pages, this issue might be our largest yet. It's packed full of urgent, fascinating work, ranging from thoughts on migration and loss, petrofictions, viruses, inheritance, art, and our most overlooked senses. Thank you to all our contributors and artists. Thanks to our editorial board, Dion Brand, David Sheriandi, Liz Johnston, Michael Helm, Rebecca Silverslater, and Madeleine Thien. An extra thanks to Brick's publisher, Laurie Graham, our circulation manager, Johanny Mendes, and Mark Bick, who just received an honorable mention from the National Magazine Awards Art Direction Grand Prix for his work. If you subscribe, you should see your copy in your mailbox very soon. And if you don't subscribe, but you'd like to, we have a website for that. Stay tuned to the end of the video for a special discount code. Tonight, we're so excited to welcome Vinh Nguyen, Adania Shibli, Jack Wang, Lisa Bird Wilson, and Amitava Kumar. Please enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Vinh Nguyen, and I'll be reading from my essay, The Migrant Rain. I'll read from the opening of the piece as well as from a section near the end. They're speaking Vietnamese, I say incredulously to my partner, who responds that they're often too loud in the morning. It's the first time I've become aware of the people living in the apartment above, and I'm struck with a terrible longing, unhinged on the inside. I'm reminded that I rarely hear or speak my mother tongue. Listening to the sounds that once shaped my world, I feel like a stranger down below. But the neighbors are not actually speaking. The sound is coming from their television, and I can't make out any words, although the inflection is instantly familiar to my ear. There's a crack spreading in the ceiling, where a spot where the stucco has crumbled. Looking up, the longing is intensified because everything coming through inches of concrete is muffled, arriving not as language, but stunted reverb. Weeks later, I see an elderly couple leaving the building. I catch a word of Vietnamese, Adai, enter in my head. It's a simple word that indicates a location, here. I follow them out into the street and through the grocery store. It's early fall, but they're both bundled up. The woman is in a puffy jacket and knitted scarf that covers half her face. Her glass is foggy. The man has on a ushanka, his hands meeting behind his slightly hunched back. In the store, they stop to inspect the produce, picking up scallions and tomatoes, comparing prices. I'm intrigued by their presence in this part of the city, that they live in a condo on a street that has been described as one of the coolest neighborhoods in the world, populated by mostly white hipsters and young professionals. I make up my mind that they are the neighbors, and I try to make sense of how they came to be here. Refugees who've lived for decades in an old suburban house, close to others who speak their language. A house they've now sold because their children are grown, and they're getting too old to climb stairs. Seeing them disrupts the idea of a life that I built for myself, away from my family and away from the past. They're both the same height, and the way they move together down the aisle is an aching image of heterosexual domesticity. one that neither my mother nor I will ever get to experience. Is this what a Vietnamese couple growing old together looks like? Is this what happens when you survive war intact? Is it the life you get to settle into when no one dies? I exit the store and slip into this crisp air, confounded by how my day has been derailed and how the things I've lost come back in the ordinary shape of two small strangers. In 2004, my mother, my sister, and I returned to Vietnam. My sister's husband comes with us. This is our first trip back since we left 16 years earlier. We are tourists who trace the S-shape of the country, going from south to north, visiting cities, beaches, and historical ruins. What we see is a package tour for those who've been away too long. During our last few days in the country, we decide on a whim to go to our old house. The taxi drops us off in front of a wet market. This is as far as I can take you. There's no car allowed into those small alleys, the driver says. We make the rest of our way on foot, passing stalls of green vegetables, hanging pieces of meat, and slabs of scaled fish, buzzing flies, the bustle of prices, and women haggling. We arrive at a house that looks freshly painted. It is smaller than I remember. The concrete wall with barbed wire is still there. My memory expands. I see now that it fences off another row of houses, where other people are living their lives next to the moment I've long preserved. Down the alley is a temple that I used to play in front of. The monks there even gave me a Buddhist name, one that I can't recall. I borrow my brother-in-law's camera and take photos of the house and everything that surrounds it. I want this to be real, to not have to rely on memory alone. As I'm clicking the button again and again, I feel a sense of creeping desperation. Somehow, none of this will remain. In the next minute, it will all crumble into dust, and who I am will be swept away with it. I'm convinced that these images I'm making now will serve some crucial future purpose. One day I'll show them to my nieces and nephews, or to the person I spend the rest of my life with. One day I might sit down to write about this experience. Everything will have been buried under other things by then. Later, when my sister and her husband divorce, he takes the photos with him. Clearing out his old life, he must have looked at them, and seeing nothing of significance, threw everything into the trash. As we are leaving, a woman calls out my mother's name. We turn around and she is approaching us with open arms. "Welcome home," she says, but we, with our backpacks and cameras and sunscreen, are nowhere near home. "Long time no see, are you good?" the woman asks. Shocked, my mother embraces her. "I could tell it was you from your gait," the woman says. It is as if time has contracted. The past can really come around again. "A policeman lives there now," she says, pointing at the house. While we've been away, this woman has stayed put, continuing the life we've left behind in the same house adjacent to the one that used to be ours. She says my mother hasn't aged a bit. 16 years crushed flat like a can of Coca-Cola. "What are you doing back here?" she asks. To be recognized is to be ejected from the present. I do not know who she is, but she knows who I am. She puts a hand on my arm, and I understand that we are the ghosts that have reappeared on a random hot afternoon in the middle of a tiny alley. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amitava Kumar. In Brick 107, I have a brief account of an encounter at the Mildura Writers' Festival with the great Australian writer Helen Garner. My piece is titled Postcard from Mildura and includes a drawing, a postcard if you will, of what I saw around me. This is something I've been doing in recent years, making a drawing practice a part of my routine as a writer. In fact, my first such report, mixing text with drawings, was published in Brick 103 in a piece titled I'm Writing a Novel, but There is the News. Here is one of the drawings from that piece. The writing on the drawing reads, I painted them this morning. Where did I first see tulips? In Srinagar, in Kashmir, where death now blossoms like flowers. Endless rows of gravestones. We live in toxic times. Everything is poisoned. I painted a tulip. I also think of Trump. I've been working on a book of drawings. These are all postcards from elsewhere. A photograph is easily printed and reproduced and shared on social media. A drawing, on the other hand, is a slow act. It slows me down. I do it in order to slow jam the news. As the world comes to us in the form of bad news, I have used newspapers as my painting surface, using gouache to alter, change, transform what I had first encountered only as news. I asked my sister in India to mail me both Hindi and English newspapers that she gets at home, and then I set to work in an effort to regain a small measure of sanity. In one image, I saw girls playing Holi, and sheer luck, on the same page of the Hindi newspaper was a photograph of the great writer Mahadevi Verma. I titled this work Ladkiyan Hain, or It is Spring, Girls Want to Play. I want to thank Brick for including my postcard in the new issue. It is a postcard to a writer, but is also, of course, a postcard to many more readers.
Tansei, my name is Lisa Bird Wilson. I'm going to read from my piece called Death Certificate, and I'm just going to read a few excerpts sort of here and there throughout the piece. The death certificate was the first piece of evidence I located on my own. I was relieved to find it, to find a piece of my father, Eddie, proof I hadn't lost him entirely. The document was available online through the British Columbia Vital Statistics website. Registration of death, centered at the top of the page, the word death in bold, all caps. A short fill-in-the-blanks affair. It's 37 boxes altogether. 37 boxes to account for a missing life. On a 6-week cross-country trip in the mid-1990s via a rented white safari GMC van in which I traveled, lived, and slept, I ended up at one point in Prince George visiting my Uncle Roy and my Auntie Bev at their house on Starlane Drive. I stayed for several days, during which they showed me the sights of Prince George, a small northern British Columbia city established on the traditional territory of the Hadley-Dene First Nation on the confluence of two rivers, the Fraser and the Nechako. In 1974, the year Eddie died there, the population of Prince George was around 60,000. Originally a Northwest Company fur trading post from the early 1800s, the city of Prince George was incorporated in 1915 and was directly tied to the building of the railway. The Baldy Hughes Canadian Forces radar station operated in Prince George from 1952 to 1988. This was where, according to his death certificate, my father was employed as a steam engineer at the time he died. Eddie, displaced from the prairies, his original land in what is now Treaty 4 territory, his ancestors, part of a mixed band known in Cree as Abishi Gagagis, in English, magpies. Bev shooed Roy and me out the door so we could go to the cemetery to see Eddie's grave. I remember little about the drive there or the walk to the grave. Together, Roy and I cleared away the dead leaves. There were 2 inscriptions on the stone, the 2 names, 2 sets of dates. My grandfather, who died shortly after my father, is buried by his side, their deaths separated by just 2 months. Roy explained that they'd been close, Eddie and his dad. I remember someone telling me that my grandfather died of a broken heart after Eddie died. I don't take this lightly. Given the power of grief, I know such a thing is possible. Magpies mourn one another by gathering over the dead and calling loudly, attracting more magpies. A mischief of magpies congregates to see who it is, which one of them has died. And then they send their comrade off by making as much noise as possible for a short time, after which they fly off silently, as if in deep reflection, the magpie rendition of a funeral. Roy confirmed Eddie's identity for the death certificate, box 17, informant, Roy's neat signature. Box 18, relationship, brother. An inquisitive, attentive magpie, Roy searched all over Prince George for Eddie's boots, his leather jacket, the items stolen right off his body after he was beaten. Roy kept his eyes open for clues, visited pawn shops, scanned the feet of other men. At the downtown bar where Eddie had been drinking that night, Roy poked around, asking questions, was told he would be better off to stop asking. Roy never quit looking for evidence, any sign he could point to that would help make sense of his lost brother. To this day, Eddie's death remains unsolved, undetermined if one believes Box 30. And I collect all the fallen feathers I find, never sure which might belong to a wayward magpie gone to find home. With each edition, I make something new.
Hi, I'm Jack Wang, coming to you from Ithaca, New York, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be reading from the beginning of my short story, Everything in Between, which appears in the issue and in my debut collection, We Two Alone. Everything in Between. When I was young, the Chinese of Port Elizabeth were granted use of a beach near the village of Shonmakeskop. In some ways, it was a mean little beach, jagged and scrubby, and nothing at all like the golden sands of Algoa Bay on the other side of the Cape. But we loved the Shonies and went there often, especially around Christmas and New Year's Day at the height of summer, our arms laden with gear, with baskets and lawn chairs and tackle, our fathers in belted trunks and matching shirts, our mothers in headscarves and daring high-waisted bikinis. At low tide, the rocky shore was safe enough for toddling, and I still remember myself in a nubby pink suit, poking through rock pools and splashing in gullies as dolphins leapt in the bay. Even now, when I yearn for the sea, I visit that beach, if only in memory. Next to our beach was a fishing pier, a long thin wooden jetty that stretched out on pilings. Unlike other fathers, Abba taught his daughter how to fish. I learned how to hold the rod and work the reel, and in time to cast with a rod of my own. From a young age, I knew I had to stay in our section of the pier, behind the sign that forbade us from going beyond, even though I longed to cast in deep water, where the fishing was best. Perhaps because of me, Abba always stationed himself closer to shore, where he often laughed with the men who were not allowed in turn to enter our section, and practically had to fish over the rocks. Still, we managed to catch blacktail and shad, and sometimes enormous cob. My favorite, though, was bronze bream, tawny and flat, and small enough to bring in myself. The summer I was 8, my family made a trip to the Shonies in our two-toned Holden Special, aqua blue with a white roof and white stripes along each side. As we sped down a single lane through open grassland, the wind in my hair, my brother in my lap, Amma turned to Abba and said, "I think it's time we bought a house." Abba was a quiet man, slow to speech. He kept his eyes on the road and didn't reply for so long that I thought he hadn't heard. "Where?" he finally asked. "Some other part of town." We lived in Cabega, the Chinese area of Port Elizabeth, a subdivision surrounded by farmland. It hadn't occurred to me that Amma wanted a house somewhere other than our neighborhood. "How?" Abba asked. "They're issuing permits now, as long as the neighbors agree." "Why would we put ourselves for them?" Amma said, dipping her head at the back seat. "They're happy at school." "What good is Chinese school? They need to learn in English, in Afrikaans." Abba drove on in silence, and I thought the matter had dropped. Then he said, "We're not white." Amma looked away, hair whipping. "That's what you always say." Her voice was bitter, and I didn't understand why she seemed to resent something that seemed self-evident. But I felt her exerting pressure, as she had a way of doing, and somehow I knew that Abba would relent. When Abba was 18, he was accepted to medical school in Hong Kong, but when the Japanese invaded, he could no longer attend. So he applied to the only 2 medical schools in the country Witwatersrand and Cape Town, and to his surprise, he got into both. Because his family had roots near Johannesburg, he chose Wits. At the start of term, Abba rode up Hospital Hill on a trolley bus, suitcase in hand. From the upper deck, he caught his first glimpse of the medical school, a 3-story granite building with inlaid brick on the ground floor. After stepping inside, he was greeted by a pale young man wearing round tortoiseshell glasses, who found Abba's name on a list and flushed. You see, when my great-grandfather came to labor for gold in the mines of Randfontein, a clerk in Durban, his port of entry, had translated his given name, Chukman, as Chapman, and we've been Chapmans ever since. The residence hall was equally surprised, but everyone there was polite. Abba was offered a chair and a glass of water, as others conferred. Then he was told he could stay until he found other housing. Abba rose from his seat, picked up his suitcase, and said, "No, thank you." Thanks.
Hello everyone, brought in and around Brick Magazine issue number 107. Apart from thanking the editors of the issue, I'd like to thank Madeleine Thien, whose friendship and literary generosity have been accompanying me over the past couple of years. This generosity is again manifest today by Madeleine reading my contribution in this issue, giving a voice to words that otherwise would have been confined to the silence of the act of writing and the silence of the act of reading. Thank you, Madeleine. Thank you, everybody.
Good evening. My name's Madeleine Thien, and it's my great honor to read for my wonderful friend, the brilliant writer, Adania Shibli. And she has a piece in this new issue of Brick, and it's called Suppose a Review by a Storyteller. Once upon a time, this was supposed to be a review of Suppose a Sentence by Brian Dillon. To write a review, though, requires an overview, and to achieve this overview, one needs to change position, to be wiser as a reader than is normally possible for a writer. To write a review of what one has read, in brief, equals one's disinvitation from one's own party in order to be the host of one's own party. Still, with a book entitled Suppose a Sentence, one supposes writing such a review to be more inviting, that is, until actual rather than supposed difficulties unexpectedly arise. Soon after it is posted to me by its publisher, the book gets stopped at the customs office for some time, and then attempts to deliver it to my address mysteriously fail a dozen times, all of which keeps any attempt to traverse its pages to review it at bay day after day. Bookless as I remain, I go on quietly enjoying the seeming impossibility of narrating without a book about a book, when a whisper suddenly reaches me from the distance of another time and another place. Walter Benjamin announces a new role to me, a storyteller. But a storyteller, Benjamin himself confesses in The Storyteller, is a force that has become something remote from us and something that is getting even more distant. But then he links this decline to the dissemination of books with the invention of printing, whereby the writer replaced the storyteller. Therefore, with the actual absence of a book, it is only logical that a writer of a book review must re-emerge as a storyteller of a supposed review. In fact, to suppose a review in this case comes at the invitation of the book itself. Just as a storyteller, rephrasing Benjamin's metaphor, can observe in a rock a human head or an animal's body at the proper distance and angle of vision, I can observe at the proper distance from the book's title, Suppose a Sentence, a call to suppose a review. Left with the imagination of a review storyteller, rather than with, as Benjamin would say, the burden of demonstrable explanation of a review writer, I also observe other characters who are key to this supposed review. a clerk at the customs office, and a delivery person at a courier company. These two characters, whom the book encounters on its way to me, also emerge as storytellers, as they too are invited to suppose a review of an absent book. A storyteller, Benjamin reminds us, can be anyone. It is supposed, then, that as the book reaches the customs office, the clerk who reviews it in order to issue a tariff on it encounters some difficulties. The clerk can't find the right customs tariff book, nor anyone around to ask where that book is. Unexpectedly, expectedly, under the recently introduced measures to counter the COVID-19 global pandemic, almost everything is online. Everyone is alone. Faced with the difficulty of setting a tariff without a customs tariff book on a book, the clerk turns to the title of Dylan's book, Suppose a Sentence, and is similarly invited to suppose a tariff. The clerk checks the price of the book inscribed on the inside back flap of its white cover. The clerk then flips through the book pages that come up to about 200. The clerk accordingly taxes the book at 200%, double its suggested price. This is a story that the clerk will tell to others one day before dawn. A story that consists not only of a moral, but also of practical advice on how to deal with the difficulties arising from the absence of a book. Outside the customs office, it is supposed then, a delivery person stands waiting for the release of the book parcel. Upon receiving it, the delivery person heads to the list of addresses that need to be reached before the end of the day for a badly paying job, a pay that gets even worse if a parcel isn't delivered. The delivery person goes on driving frantically across the city to deliver the too many parcels people are ordering during the COVID-19 global pandemic, where almost everything is online, everyone is alone. The delivery person must go up floors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some bastards don't even say which floor they are on, so the delivery person must climb up the stairs instead of taking the elevator, even though there is one. Parcel after parcel, the delivery person eventually reaches the little parcel stamped with a customs tariff. Breathless, the delivery person inspects the little parcel more closely, then looks inside and sees a book entitled Suppose a Sentence. Invited by the book title, the delivery person starts to suppose the reaction of the recipient upon noticing the high tariff on the literal parcel, and may well not agree to pay the sum, suspecting the whole thing to be a fraud once the delivery person's sweaty immigrant face and loose uniform appear in the doorframe. The delivery person will just make the breathless flight all the way up the stairs and all the way down the stairs for nothing. The delivery person thus decides not to deliver the parcel and instead files a sentence stating that the recipient refused to pay the customs tariff on the book and rejected the parcel day after day for days on end, during which the book is not delivered, but without that affecting in the slightest the job's pay. This is a story the delivery person will tell to others one day before dawn. A story that consists not only of a moral, but also of practical advice on how to deal with the difficulties arising from the absence of a book. It is supposed then, as dawn breaks, storytellers bring their stories to an end. No longer in the company of storytellers, I am left alone with silence to roam my flat as one does after hosting a party, when I suddenly find a little parcel, a present. Suppose a Sentence has finally arrived, indeed with a customs tariff double its price, but with no time left to review it. All I may do now is read the book in a manner that Benjamin laments, isolated. In my solitude, though, I start to hear whispers of storytellers from the distance of another time and another place, telling how their supposed reviews had them live happily ever after. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adania, and have a wonderful night.
Song of the Andoumboulou, 225 and a half. Dionysius, live at the Apollo. We were most a nation, with James Brown on one knee at the Apollo. The closest we got, him saying, "I'm so weak." All our ways and means are lost someone, all our wishing one. The closest we came was when he screamed and we screamed, we of the public swoon. It was James Brown on the box when it wasn't Hutch. A pimped or impeded walk from one gray state to another. The weak-kneed aggregate we formed, or fell in with, or the palatial peacoat Andrianette wore. Zavia's gloss on whom we hardly gave a thought. Nation time, time athwart time, having had a black president, not even close. Dionysius gone Apollonian, the closest we got. All the grieving distance held at arm's length, gone over again. Having had a black president, not it at all, but crater, made us pay. We stood, or we sat buffeted from gray to gray, never a nation more than when we screamed, "Sing your song," or yelled, "Go on, scream." Never more than as it got cold outside. Nation time, time athwart time. The one word kept echoing, someone. Nation having nothing to do with it but common, close but not really, meta maybe it was. The way the bottom dropped out of it so spoke to us we winced. Never a nation more than unsupported, never a nation more than gasping, "Help me, somebody." More nation, the more needy we were. More nation, the more Dionysian we were. The more Dionysian, the more the Apollo was our White House. The flames, our Congress. Never more nation than when the nation let us go. We were never more Dionysian than at the Apollo. Each of us Dionysius, live at the Apollo. Our nation not another nation, but another kind of nation. We were most a nation when the trumpet cut like a blade, and we screamed our throats raw. Never more a nation than when we accepted the reed's insinuation. Our nation not another nation, but another kind of nation. We were free to submit, and submitting unbound, true of no nation we knew.